so it's not uncommon that we kind of get called into rather complex deals or somebody liquidating their stash or something to that effect. We kind of got that going on right now. Here's the backstory. A couple of good friends of the shop, they're real gamers. It took us several months to put together a deal to where we can go down to Austin, Texas and pick up a bunch of parts and cars that were being sold. I think effectively it was like 5 cars and all the parts you could stuff in the cars, and those are actually en route right now on a truck to us, so we should have those next week. But a couple of friends were involved in that deal, and the logistics that it took to get that laid out took months. Because you have to also recognize a lot of the stuff is it's personal, it's people's attachment to their past, and you have to have a lot of respect for what it is you're actually dealing with. There's an emotional attachment to these parts and these cars. So the two gents, and you're going to see them later, came up with another deal, and here's the big story. There is a lot of cars and parts out in the middle of the desert that are being sold off, and 1 or 2 of the cars that are going to be a part of this package deal are pretty tasty, so they're not going to be there for very long, so we have to act quick. There's a high risk factor involved when you're doing something like this, from my perspective, because A, you have to buy a ticket on a plane on short notice, and we all know that isn't cheap. That's also time away from work, and the logistics that gets laid out on things like this can really get out of hand very quickly. So you kind of have to have a good feel for what's going on for you to even validate the expense of making the trip. Put it in perspective, we're about 45 minutes away from the Canadian border, and we're going to take a 1,000-mile plane trip tonight, and it's Friday. We're going to take a 1,000-mile plane trip tonight down to San Jose, California. Then we're going to take a 6-hour drive from San Jose out to the high desert past Yosemite, going into the Nevada Valley. You want to make sure that if you're going to do that, that you're going there for a reason. The last thing you want to do is get there, and then whoever the owner of the products are gets cold feet and doesn't want to sell. You wasted a lot of resources, and quite honestly, financially, that could be somewhat debilitating if the deal doesn't pan out. But in this case, there was a lot of pre-dialogue that's happened over the last week or so, and so the 3 of us are going to meet up in California and then head out from there. You'll meet Mike and Paul later on in the video. These guys are real gamers. They're amassing a lot of products very quickly. Mike's been on the Alfa scene for a long time, so he's always had his niche. He's always been into the step nose GTVs and the 69 GTVs. Paul is a little bit different in the sense that he comes from fairly short background on Alfas, but he's amassed a lot of really cool cars very quickly. He's got GTC, he's got an SS, he's got a Veloce Spider, he's got a Veloce Sprint, and a few other cars. And we've even bought cars just for the sake of having parts, and we'll talk about that some more later as well. But these guys are real gamers, and they put this deal together, and so now we're all heading to the high desert to go after these things. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here in the very northwest. Our high temperature today is to be about 75, and within the next 24 hours we'll be looking at a temperature swing of well over 100. Us northwest boys aren't used to that, so we'll see how that goes. But for now, we have to start get going. So grab our ready to go pack. Always keep it on hand because you just never know when something like this happens. And then we're gonna get into the car. We're gonna head down to the airport in Seattle, which is effectively an hour away. And then we're gonna get on that plane heading into San Jose. And again, from San Jose, we will get in a car and head 6 hours east of that area to our next destination. And we'll only have a couple of hours to be there. This isn't something that most people, in just a hobbyist form would even really consider doing, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Unless you just had a huge amount of cars you're trying to put back together, and you're also trying to get the parts that are oh so rare that you can't buy new for that car. The risk factor on my side of this is pretty high, because if it doesn't pan out, I've spent a lot of time and money to go to this trip. This is kind of the exact opposite of what we've always said, doing your research, getting a good sense of what it is you're getting into before you write the check. But here's the thing. In this deal, there's a couple of step-nose GTVs. They're not in worthy condition at any capacity, but the thing about that is the step-nose GTVs are red hot right now in the market. So not only are they hot for the parts that are needed to put other cars together, but they're real hot because a lot of people are now starting to get into the racing scene on these, and the preference is the step-nose because a lot of these racing divisions out in this country have time constraints. So the step-nose GTV generally qualifies for almost any vintage series racing. So that's one of the things we're going after. But the real caveat, the absolute real reason why we're going is because there's one car in the bundle that is a must-have, and that is a 59 Sprint. It's a Normale, but it doesn't matter because think about it. 5 years ago, you wouldn't have wrote a check for more than a couple grand for a Normale Sprint. But now, even for just a shell, you know, you're lucky if you get away for 6, 7, 8 grand anymore. So these things have gone out of orbit on price. And with that said, again, the GTVs that are part of the package deal on this, they're worth quite a bit in the sense of parts only. One of them is a fairly rare car in this part of the world because it's a junior series step-nose GT. So it has a couple of unique parts on it that are only relevant to the junior series. And we've got a lot of purists out there that are trying to put their cars back together the way it was before it was brought over here.
Very rare. It's 2 crowns and 1. Or it's 1 crown and 2.
Is this what the when you go, is this what you get when you go to the dental school?
Just not enough glue, you know. Not to do a scone. Man, I can't even swallow it.
This is gonna be a good video.
You want to stop at Walmart and get some super glue, Mike?
Yes. I need some like 2-part epoxy, some JB Weld. That might work.
And the thing of it is the rest of America thinks I'm making it up when I talk about Mike.
Well, exactly.
The rest of America. So no one else can see it. Just Americans.
Well, here's the thing. This is living proof that there is such thing as a Mike. You know, we don't have documented proof of Sasquatch or Loch Ness Monster, but we definitely got the screwiest guy in America in the backseat of this car.
Oh, now that's not fair.
That's not nice.
Screwiest guy in America? You guys act like I said he raped nuns or something. I'm just saying he's the screwiest guy in America.
The scone just turns into like a slurry back there. It just pulls anything off in its path.
I don't think I need the visual there.
But you got it. Wait till the neuroses kicks in.
All right.
Go yellow. Where?
There's the white one.
Oh, I thought you meant a real, like, bug. Are there any snakes out here? Rattlesnakes? Yeah, we'll go up there. Scare them away.
This one is available cheap. Real cheap.
It's for the right spider person.
Yeah.
How are those things? Oh, they're little chipmunks. Yep. They're desert monks.
This doesn't all for them. Let's see, we'll look at the Juliet suicide tool.
Sure. It's got a nice radio. Keys are in it. Fire right up. It's got
Big
that
Breakates.
air motor. Air powered.
How many Juliettas do you see, Darren, that have this little rust on them in the floor pans
You
in the
don't.
trunk?
You just don't.
You don't see them, huh?
You just don't see them with this little rust.
Yeah.
I don't think...
The frame looks
I was just
really...
looking at the battery box. It's got a little rust on it, but there's nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think.
Mm-hmm. It's telling no lies right now.
It's still alive, you know?
You've taken good care of her.
Well, it's the dry heat here, huh?
Yeah, well, it's been sitting here for a lot of years, man.
That'd be a very acute rollover, Mike.
Very acute.
A very specific, you know.
Take it, throw it on here.
It's got the bumper's good, except for
Yeah, the bumper looks good.
They bolted through the...
Oh, wow. Really out that 8-dowel crank for you, Mike.
Yeah, that's...
4-bolt front end, we got to have that.
Yeah, the 4x front end. Well, how are they going to get?
That's not my problem.
Pick it
I'm
up.
just telling you, we got to have it. Wow.
Everything.
So here we are. We traveled
317.7 miles.
right 6 hours, 317 miles. Tack that on to the 1,000-mile plane trip. Tack that on to the 317 miles back,
Yep.
and the 1,000-mile plane trip back from there, and you come up with what is bupkis. But that is the risk you take. Lots of interesting stuff out there. Good, you know, meeting, if you will, right?
Good meeting, good dialogue, interesting guy.
Interesting everything. Good
Right.
tacos.
Yeah, guy makes a mean taco.
Yep, mean tacos.
But this is kind of, you know, that's the nature of the biz. I mean, you're going to have your moments where you have success, and you have your moments where you crash and burn, and then you have your moments where it seems like it takes forever to close a deal.
It's all part of
This
the
I would
game.
put in the category of takes forever to close a deal. Because the reality of it is, it's not over with. It's as said before, it's when there's an emotional attachment to a car, it becomes very difficult to see that car released from its owner. You know,
Mm-hmm.
He has
and
a
that's what
dream
you have
of
to
driving
recognize.
Which we saw once again.
But
So
also, you know,
Yeah, and you know, I mean, this gentleman
said during the meeting, that he really has an interest in driving the car again, and
Apply.
it's hard to turn that dream off, right?
I don't want to turn that dream off.
And the kicker on that though is reality has to kick into place at some point in time. The car is too far removed from being a viable road option.
Right.
If he was a younger fella, I could understand that. You got to respect where a guy's coming from and his vision, no matter how realistic or unrealistic that vision could be. But nonetheless, and this is where, as we talked before, the dialogue with the rest of the family has to come into place, because somebody needs to kind of
they all weren't
gently
on the
nudge
same
him into
page.
reality. Right, and that's what I was saying before, though. There is a huge risk you're taking on such vague dialogue, and though we had a good understanding of what was going on,
Right.
there were still big gaps in the intel.
Well, I mean, we knew what he had, but what we didn't know was the level of readiness to sell.
Correct.
That was my water.
No, can I take Darren's water? I forgot to grab a water out of the truck. I don't have
But, and obviously his wife's perspective is far different than his.
obviously.
And I think, assuming dialogue with son happens and, son in turn talks to mom, I'm thinking dad's going to have a significant change of mind. He might just need somebody near and dear to him to remind him of
Sure.
the brevity of the situation. It's not like you're putting this thing together yourself.
I mean, I would love for him to be able to have his dream to drive that car again.
Yes.
But it's not, and he might be able to drive that car again, but it's not going to be one that he has restored and he owns. Maybe there's a new owner that picks up that car and restores it, and then does him the honor of letting him drive the car one last time,
And that's a valid point, but your bigger point about recognizing, appreciating, and respecting the boundaries is key. Because, and that's probably what he's getting right now in phone calls, is people who are not appreciating
Sure.
the level of sensitivity you need to handle something like this with.
Right. It's how much, what's it got, and he's thinking, no, it's more than that,
Well, they just want to do a quick deal, and
Yeah.
I think the other problem is even if they do a deal, they don't recognize how far out of the way this place is and how much it's going to cost to get the car out of here.
Well, Paul, what you talk about on Google Map, it's only about an inch away.
Exactly.
1 inch is 100 miles.
I mean, if you just took a look around here and just saw how there is nothing out here, this would discourage anybody from wanting to trek out here.
It's a nice place to visit, but it's far.
Yeah, it's a serious level of commitment you got to have to even want to come this
And then
far out.
thinking about the logistics of shipping out cars that some roll, some don't, what's all there,
Right.
Well,
you
so
have to have
so the reality is as we know, the main reason we were interested in coming out was for the Giulietta Sprint. But he does have a couple of other cars, right? He's got a 74 GTV and 2 step-nose cars, one of which we can't figure out exactly what pedigree it is,
it's
right?
kind of unusual.
Well, that brings up a point. I wanted to say something, but I just didn't want to say it in mixed company. You can only give the Fusi book so much credit, because there is a ton of
there's
well-known boo-boos in the VIN number verifier in there.
Nothing's perfect.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody call me and go, I got a car that doesn't match anything in the Fusi book. Is it special? Well, we want it to be special, but the reality of it is it's most likely not special. You know?
Yeah. But I mean, I think the key thing is that I think he's not emotionally attached to everything else that's out there, and he'd like to get rid of everything else and hang on to the Sprint. But I think the only deal that's worth doing for anybody is a package deal with the Sprint and the other stuff. It's not worth our time to haul 2 step-nose cars that are really not restorable and 74 GTV, out of here without without the Sprint being part of the package. So
Yeah, the logistics of executing something like that here would be huge, because it's not a one-man show. It's not a truck driver would probably want to kill you if you came all the way out here. You know, I mean, seriously, think about it. You are 3-hour drive minimum from any airport to get here.
Yeah.
You would think in this day and age in this country, you shouldn't be 3 hours away from anything.
No cell service, right?
Right. I mean, you know, bulk of the trip, no cell service, right? But hey, it's a rolling of the dice. It's a risk you take, and that's just the way it is.
Well, I mean, you know, you do have a closer airport. Mammoth is pretty close, but Mammoth, I don't think they have flights in the summertime, right? Because it's a winter ski resort, right?
That I don't know.
I thought Mammoth had a lake.
They have an airport.
Yeah, they do have an airport. But I couldn't find flights, so
And
was a
exactly
drive.
what
sure
crop
it's-
duster do you get on to get here?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure it doesn't have a 7 in the beginning nor the end of it. It's more along the lines of Bob's crop dusting and Mammoth dumping. and how is
We
the
can fly
Mammoth
the
Avis?
parts out of here.
Is the Mammoth Avis pretty active up here?
Yeah, that's a good point. You get into Mammoth, and then how are you going to get out here, right?
Yeah, it's Bob's horses. Wow.
Bring your own helicopter.
But a recap of what was there, and I would imagine as you guys saw the video, you guys are probably going, wow, there was a bunch of junk out there. And that couldn't be further from the truth. From my line of work, I look at it and I see an awful lot of rare items that I can't find. So obviously the cars that are out in the desert, a lot of that stuff is unattainable. And so if I were to look at those cars in that light, that's a very business effect. Now that is a thought I keep to myself, because the gentleman who owns the stuff, I don't know what his level of emotions are to the cars out in the desert. I do know the level of emotions attached to the Sprint and the shed, and that probably is a significant statement within itself. The Sprint's in a shed, well preserved. The other cars are out in the high plains in the elements. So it kind of probably, you know, is a clue as to his interpretation of what those things mean to him. But you look at what is ideal to build out of those. For example, one of the Zephyrs is actually quite ready to build if somebody was going to do a race car. It wouldn't really be a practical choice if somebody was trying to put one back on the street, simply because, you know, when the interior is, you know, tore up, that's one thing, but when it's completely destroyed and or missing, that can oftentimes be one of the biggest expenditures of putting that car back on the road. So it's probably a very good candidate for racing, not necessarily for anything else. The 74 GTV, the ironic thing about that car is it was actually in very good shape. It had a nasty bruise on the fender, but effectively the rest of the car was actually in fairly good shape. But again, what hurts that car the most is the fact that, you know, the extremely high temperatures in the summertime and the exceptionally cold temperatures in the winter, that large movement in swing in temperature, that does a number on plastic and interior parts. And that's what you got there. You got an interior that is completely destroyed in that car, so you'd have to really think twice as to what you would even do with it. It's a fairly complete car, all of it's there. So you'd really have to reflect on that. But the bigger part of the problem all this is all the cars doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to getting them out of the desert, because that place is so far out. It's 300 something miles away from any other real civilization. So to get a trucking company that would even be willing to go out there would would be crazy because most of these trucking companies prefer to be somewhere within a routine route because they make their living going from town to town, grabbing cars as they go. And if you take them way off their standard route, it hurts their bottom line. So you'd have to find one that would do it, and two, you know they're going to charge you a premium for doing it because you're taking them way outside their route. That could be expensive. That expense gets added to, you know, the purchase price. It has to be. Are you going to recoup your money at that point? Yeah, most likely, but it's not going to be a fast flip. And again, only the cars out in the desert are really something that would be in the flip variety. The Sprint, that's different. I don't think I've seen a Sprint that straight, that rust-free, that unmolested, quite honestly, ever. Usually some Sprints have some degree of issues with them. That one didn't. Effectively everything was there, it just wasn't on the car. So that's really a bit of a holy grail in that sense, and to be able to find that car again would be next to impossible. But that car is what motivates you to get on that plane, take that 1,000-mile trip, take that 7-hour drive out, only to do it all again on the way back out of there. And if you don't succeed with the purchase of something, it could be a huge loss. That's why we do this on the weekend. Because this would have been somewhat devastating if I did this during the week. I'm no different than anybody else in my shop, and the fact that I have to work in order to get a paycheck. So it's been a fascinating experience, and it's not new though. I've had this happen to me many times. We have been in situations where somebody, you know, just recently, in fact, I had a gentleman call me and said he had 2 Julietta Spiders. Both were normalies, but he had 2 Julietta Spiders that he had to sell. It was time to go. He wasn't doing anything with them. One was in the eastern part of this state, and the other one was relatively close to me. So he meets up with me to go look at the one that was close to me. Now, he assured me that these were fine examples. We go up to the high hills areas, which I thought was odd. We go onto a very small parcel of land that the gentleman owned, which I thought, okay, that's a little weird. But there's a shipping container there. And the shipping container has big holes cut out of the top. Why, I don't know. But you put a 1958 Julietta Spider inside of a shipping container back in 1970, and you have really not opened it or done anything with it since. So when we got there, I'm not kidding you, you could have used a spoon to scoop out that car. It was literally nothing but little rust pellets. I mean, the thing had completely eroded all the way down to the ground. There was nothing there. What do you do with that? Nothing, right? And you try to be optimistic. You try to go, well, what is there that's savable? Well, you can see that the axle is still there, the motor's still there, you can see the fuel lines are still there, and the windshield pillars are still there, but the rest of the car was literally like burnt toast. It was just all over the place. Just, you know, you couldn't even move it without it falling apart. But you did that during the middle of the week. That's an expensive trip because you took off time from work, you drove 150 miles to go look at something that wasn't savable at any point. It's the risk we take, but that's what you do when you're chasing these vintage Alfas. Who'd have thought you'd have desert at 7,000 feet, right? Isn't that nuts? Hey Mikey, what are you doing?
Watering the plants.
Watch out for that snake coming up behind you.
God damn it.
It's okay.
It's scary in here.
Wasn't there an episode of the Brady Bunch up in here somewhere?